Okay. I'm showing that it is 7 o'clock. We have 25 participants here on the call. To be kind of respectful, I know we have some special guests here this evening. We got members of our fire company are here joining us this evening. And out of respect of their time, everyone's time, our special guest time, I'm going to use my chairman's discretion here. I'm going to mix up the agenda a little bit. And I'd like to start with the presentation. So, as you all know, on July 30th at approximately 7:20, the fire company was dispatched for a fire at the Ashwood Apartments, an event that turned out to be pretty significant. It involved 30 fire companies, our police department, and area emergency responders who all responded that evening to a fire that unfortunately got out of control, and we all know the damage that it did. So tonight, I thought it might be wise to give a little recap of the event. I've asked Matt Diker, Chuck Hipple to be here. We also have a family who were one of the victims of the fire who lived at Ashwood Apartments. I'm going to have Matt introduce them shortly. So Matt, at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Yes, like you just said, the police department and fire department did respond out to the Ashwood Apartments on July 30th for a active structure fire. Upon arrival, officers did observe heavy smoke and flames coming from the third floor as well as the roof. Our officers began, along with firefighters, to evacuate residents from the building. We received help from East Coventry Township and East Vincent Township. Police officers came to give us a helping hand.
With the fire department, we had over 30 fire departments and several EMS units from Chester, Berks, Montgomery, and Delaware counties to assist in the firefighting and the supply of water. After several hours, we did deem the fire under control. 4 residents and 3 firefighters were transported from the scene by Goodwill Ambulance for treatment of their injuries sustained in the fire. None of the firefighters' injuries were life-threatening. Fire marshals from Chester County, the Pennsylvania State Police, and the ATF assisted Fire Marshal Ron Comtois with the investigation into the cause of the fire as well.
So later that night, we were able to take account for all the residents of the apartment. And with the aids of the school buses from the Owen J. Roberts School District, we were able to transport the residents from the fire scene over to the fire company where they were assisted by the Red Cross. Our commitment by our first responders that night was certainly on display, but we wanted to take time to especially mention several firefighters and officers who definitely answered the call of duty that night.
First of all, Fire Chief Joe McMillan arrived on location, entered the building to do a search and rescue of any residents that were on the 3rd floor. Joel kicked in the door, was able to find a resident lying on the floor with heavy smoke all around. Joel was able to grab and hold the resident and rescue her from the building with the assistance of firefighter Jake Savo and Jimmy Keck.
Just to take a minute or two here for a couple officers that I wanted to mention. First is Officer Shane Woodrow. He was off duty when the fire occurred at Ashwood Apartments. Officer Woodrow ran over to the apartments and went into the burning building. At that point in time, he was our first officer on scene and began to knock on doors and direct residents out of the building. After evacuating the residents and assisting those in need, Officer Woodrow came in for duty and covered calls in the rest of the township that evening while the officers were tied up on the fire scene. Corporal Zinger was the supervisor who was on duty that night. Corporal Zinger also began to evacuate residents from the apartment when he arrived on scene. Corporal Zinger noticed one resident who was on the third floor who appeared to be ready to leap out the window in order to escape the heavy smoke. He was able to keep the man calm and reassure him that help was on its way. Corporal Zinger and other officers remained with that resident until a ladder was brought over, and the resident was assisted down out of the window by firefighter Chase Keck. And finally, the last two officers, Officer Andrew Templin, who had just finished up with our field training program with the department, and Officer Vic McCheese, they also responded to the fire. The two of them went in. They began to clear out the second floor for residents, and then went outside. They were advised of another resident, Barbara, who was still inside on the third floor. They re-entered the building and went to the third floor. Officer McCheese was able to see a hand on the floor through the heavy smoke, and Officer Templin and Officer McCheese grabbed hold of Barbara's arms and were able to pull her down the stairs and take her outside of the building. So this evening, I'd like to take a moment and just introduce one of the members of Barbara's family who is with us here online, who wished to say a few words. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Keith Singleton.
Well, good afternoon, guys, and thanks for allowing me to take a couple of minutes to speak to you guys. I would first like to say you guys are very humble. The officer that was speaking was extremely humble. If you ask my version of events, Officer Templin and Officer McCheese, I believe, I don't want to mess his name up.
Yep, you got it.
Those guys are superheroes. They put S's on their chest and they actually put a cape on their back, and they're superheroes. I want to make it perfectly clear, had it not been for them guys that day, my family would right now be in mourning and ready to lay my oldest sister, Barbara, who was 63 years old. Right now we'll be ready to lay her to rest. Okay, so it's extremely humbling to address you guys, and I'm just getting goosebumps all over again, because what them guys did was it was extremely heroic, in the least. My sister Barbara was attempting to come down the steps, and she had her daughter's hand and her granddaughter's hand. Well, it was smoky. There was no way for them to know where they was going. And my sister Barbara, she has a hard time walking, bad knees. She can barely get up the steps. And when she do get up the steps, she stays there. Okay, she became disoriented after she uncoupled her daughter's hand. So her daughter and her granddaughter actually ran down the steps, and they was telling Officer McCheese that there's somebody upstairs. So instantly he ran in the building, and I asked him, because we came to the Norco Police Department last week, and we met those guys. We asked the officer that was just speaking, pardon me, I forget his name. We asked him, can he please call these two guys, and we just want 5 minutes to meet these guys and thank them. And they allowed us to come to the office, and we stood outside in the parking lot, and we just, my sister was there, her daughter, the granddaughter, a couple of my sisters, a couple of us family members, and we wanted them guys to know how much we appreciated them. Once again, my sister became disoriented, and she sat on the floor, and she literally said, well, that was it. There was nothing she can do. And this superhero came up the steps, and he explained what happened. And first I asked him, I said, well, you know, what makes you guys run into a burning building and you have no tanks on, you have no mask on? First officer that was there, McCase, he said when he got up to the steps, he said he was even disoriented in the smoke. And he said Officer Templing came behind him and gave him a strong nudge. And my sister was trying to actually cut on her flashlight on the phone. So that's what they seen was a little light, and they grabbed her and they ran. So once again, those guys, the whole police department, the whole fire department that responded to that, this is just one story, I'm sure, of many. But my family would like to personally thank everybody involved. And, I think we made friends for life because we talked to them guys. My sister demanded that they make themselves for dinner, available for dinner one time. And he said he had a little girl and he would bring his little girl over one night when he's off. So I think we made eternal friends. But I'm here today to thank the police department, the fire department, and anybody else who responded to that scene that day. And please know that those two officers are heroes. And there's no other way to describe them. We call them superheroes. Okay, and it's my pleasure to be here, and I thank you guys for giving me a couple of minutes. And once again, please give them guys a pat on the back anytime you see them. And thanks from the Singleton and Grosvenor family. Thank you, guys.
It's very truly humbling to hear those praises coming, but I was certainly very proud of our guys, all the firefighters that were there. I mean, they all came together that night. Everything worked together, and the best report out of that night was all the residents were accounted for. We were able to get them out, and it's a long road for them, but fortunately that night we were able to bring everybody out of that apartment safely, with very few injured.
Chuck, how about you? Last words?
It's like Matt said, it's very humbling. Like I always want to say, we may wear different uniforms, but we're one team. And that goes, police, fire, our road department. I didn't mention that our roadmaster, John McKee, was at the firehouse that night, helping organize some of the people coming in and stuff like that. So I'll give a shout out to John. But like I said, different uniforms, one team.
Really puts in perspective those calls that come in at all hours of the night and the impact that you have when you show up. You never know what you're going to be met with, and the impacts you have on somebody's life. Certainly Keith made that clear tonight, and you guys responding, all of you who responded, made a difference in this family's life and many of the families over there for sure. So we, on behalf of the township and the board, Keith, we certainly wish you and your family all the best. Hope that everything, goes your way in the future and that you can get your family back to some kind of normal, hopefully sooner than later. You are right, you've made friends for life. We consider ourselves a township of, like I said earlier, neighbors that help each other out. And I'm glad that our responders were able to be there when you needed it. So we wish you all the best in the future going forward. At some point, once we're past this COVID pandemic thing, it certainly would hope and that we'll have a chance to all get together and properly thank in person the officers who responded that night. It would be great to have everybody in one place to meet and greet and share those stories in person. So Keith, thank you so much for you and and your family for speaking up and for reaching out to our police department last week. I know it meant a lot to those guys that you showed up. You could see it in their faces on Facebook. So we definitely appreciate those kind words.
Excuse me. I hope that we tagged a couple of us tagged the police department in our Facebook video, and we showed our meeting with the guys. Once again, please, I don't want to underestimate how grateful we are. And that day I must have said it about 20 times, and my sister must have hugged them about 100 times. You know, when it hits home like this and it's personal to us, there's a lot of things going on in the world with this and that, and Black Lives Matter and this, and you know, it's a whole lot of things. But when we look at it, and after we talked to those two officers, I feel we have more in common than not. You know what I mean? He told us a couple stories. We told him a couple stories. So it was really good to sit down and meet them guys. And thank God for Officer Templin, who just came on the force, I believe, to your department. You know, I understand it was a team effort, and we would certainly like to pin the a S on their chest when we get a time, and if we can meet up again. So once again, thank you guys for allowing me to speak to you guys. And if you see them guys, please tell them once again, Keith says hi and thank you. And Barbara says hi and thank you. She's back in New York and she's resting comfortably now. So thank you very much, guys.
Will do. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
And so while we're on the subject of the fire, our manager had in her manager's report a recap of the relief effort from the fire and what happened that night. These guys did a really good job of explaining what happened during the fire and the response from the emergency responders, but the response from the community was unbelievable. It was nothing nobody could have expected to have happened as quickly as it happened. I understand donations were coming into the fire company within hours of that fire starting, and while the people who were affected were arriving at the fire company, the community was already reaching out to help, and it did not stop for days, and it still continues into this week. If you saw, I'm sure you all saw the photos on Facebook of the donations that came in that filled the social hall, filled North Coventry Elementary School, it filled a storefront in the area that the fire company used as back storage. And the comments on Facebook about people working together and being kind and stepping up when people needed help was just inspiring, for sure, emotional for many, and an example of what our community can do at a time of need, when people are in need, and what this community can do. The fire company alone in cash, I understand, took in $22,000 of cash donations over the weekend. That is, from what I understand, did not include checks that were written and left at the fire company. There was an online donations that were made to that. And I'm going to let Erica talk about where that money is going and how it's being handled. But the response was just something to be proud of. So with that said, Erica, I'm going to turn it to you and kind of give us a recap of the relief efforts. Before I do that, I do want to make special thanks to our fire company for what they did in just the relief effort. Fire company responds to fires, they put out fires and they go back to their station. But when they got back to their station, their work was essentially just beginning from the response and outreach from the community. And there was dozens of volunteers, our volunteer fire company. They're primarily 100% run by donations and fundraisers. In a year when fundraisers were canceled, they all stepped up, they showed up, they handled and met people at the door. They accepted donations as they came in. They did whatever they could to assist the families of this event. The early videos from that night, you can see them greeting the family inside the social hall, making accommodations for them, making sure they were being taken care of and fed and supported. And I just can't say enough about our fire company volunteers. A lot of them are what you consider social members. People who are there just to help and give their time, and they all did that. Just booming props for their response. So Erica, now I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. What a wonderful message, I think, here. The community activated instantaneously during this time of need. And, you know, right now, the response, we've dealt with this response. We have these amazing, heroic first responders that have come forward. You know, this call of duty here, this next phase that we're in is really recovery. And working with all the organizations to try and put, you know, some semblance to what these next steps are for these affected residents. That's such a key component of all of this. And, you know, the township's role in that, the Chester County has really brought forward a lot of resources, and over the last week has helped to really assemble almost subcommittees that are looking at laying out the specific tasks that have to be taken here moving forward in order to help restore each resident and household's lives, really, and find support and find some permanent housing at this point. So one of those things, the donations that have come in, the Tri-County Community Network, Holly Parker has stepped up and provided through their nonprofit corporation. They actually provide opportunities for different groups to set up a donation site. So they have a live web link now, which this is all included in my report, which I have that link. And I also have TCN's address for sending checks as well. They're located at 724 North Adams Street, Suite 203 in Pottstown. And they will be working with the entities that right away started to collect funds, and you know, different organizations that stepped up to do that, or sponsor families, all of those different things, try and work towards that. They're also going to create a committee to oversee the distribution of the funds, so that they're certainly fire relief to the residents, to these families directly, and doing that in you know, an effective, efficient manner. Also, the donations that have come in, I mean, it's just tremendous. You know, it's overwhelming. You actually, you know, we were all coming together trying to exchange information about, you know, who was collecting, where, you know, things going. And the fire company was just outstanding and just stepping up and helping with all that. I mean, it was quite the effort. And I know that this is all transitioning now. Liberty Thrift in Saratoga, they are going to be, or have been now, in the process of having these items transferred to Liberty Thrift in Saratoga, 2200 East High Street in Pottstown. This is going to be the site where the fire relief victims, the residents' families can go and have certain hours where they can go and pick up whatever they need at that time. I know that the Chester County does have a community warehouse project, which they can collect furniture. I have that number, which is within my report as well. But other than that, all those other donations, that should be going through Liberty Thrift at this point. So trying to centralize things. And then as far as housing will be coordinated, seeking landlords in the Tri-County area through the Housing Authority of Chester County. And there are many organizations, nonprofits, that work in a myriad of different needs in terms of housing to facilitate this process for these residents. And so that committee will be taking care of that at this point. So we have that information. We're continuing to stay in touch with the county and all of the stakeholders as part of this process, and here to support that effective output of communication and resources for our township residents. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Erica. Just a quick note on those donations that the fire companies all come in online. They came in from all over the country. They had donations from Washington State, Los Angeles, Michigan, Ohio, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. So you can say what you want about social media, but sometimes it works in your favor. So I want to thank everybody who showed up tonight. I'm just going to open it up for any kind of comments or questions from the public at this time, from anybody who would like to say anything. Please do. Keith is still online if anybody has anything for him. Just please unmute yourself, identify yourself if you would, and just make your comment.
It's Chris Washburn. It really has been outstanding, not only making national news. I got calls from a number of people that we know all over the country asking about this North Coventry apartment that had the fire. But the support and donations coming in have been incredible. But in looking at this as after the fact, what can we learn from this to prevent something like this going forward? Do we have other apartments that don't have sprinklers and firewalls and that kind of stuff?
Well, there'll certainly be a lot of questions that will be asked, and I'm sure the investigation will turn up things that we can learn from. You learn from everything that happens, and especially big events like this. So we will certainly be looking at anything going forward, as whether it's rental inspections or sprinkler codes or whatever it may be. We'll address those in the future as they come up. I want to thank all of our special guests who came here this evening for this. I know some of you have to go, so don't feel bad about signing out. Keith, thanks again for joining us and sharing that story. Please send our best to your sister, Barbara, and tell her we wish she's up and about as soon as possible. So thank you again.
Once again, thank you guys for giving me a couple of minutes. God bless you all. God bless them officers and their family, and peace be with you. I'm signing out. Have a good night, guys. Thank you again.
You too. Thank you, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we are going to move on with our meeting. And I didn't make this clear before, but on this meeting tonight, I do have Supervisor Rick Sheeler, Supervisor Rebecca Elliott, Supervisor Spencer Claypool, and myself, Jim Marks. I'm chairman of the Board of Supervisors, along with our Township Manager, Erica, who you've already seen, and our solicitor, Dan Sager, is here as well. So at this time, board members, I am going to ask that for an approval of the minutes of the July 27th meeting. They were in your packet. Do I have any comments or corrections on those?
I made one slight correction. Erica, did you check to make sure the statement was correct?
Yes, and we're going to make that minor change. It was in a comment to the parks and the use of open space money.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if everything else is okay, then I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, Rebecca makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rick seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have unpaid bills totaling. I don't have the total here in front of me. Erica, do you have that total?
Yes, we had payroll from last week to get in. So bills paid, $113,586.11.
Okay.
And then to be paid, $11,590.54.
Okay. Any comments or questions on the bills? Any comments or questions from the public? I did post what I had online. I just didn't have the totals. Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to pay what she said and approve the payroll and paid items like she said?
So moved.
Rick made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Rebecca seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Developers bills. Any comments on the developers bills? Moving on to the presentation. Do we have a representative here? John Kern, is he on the call?
I believe he is. John, are you here this evening?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
All right.
great.
John, welcome. John is a constituent advocate for Representative Chrissy Houlihan's office. He asked to be on our agenda tonight, just kind of touch base with us. So John, why don't you share what you have?
Great, good evening. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the board for the opportunity to talk to you. And also thank you to the first responders, the fire company, and the police officers and everyone involved who acted heroically on the night of July 30th into the 31st on behalf of the Congresswoman. Like the chairman said, my name is John Kern, and I'm a constituent advocate with U.S. Representative Chrissy Houlihan. This is Representative Houlihan's first term, and the 6th district has recently redrawn lines. It now encompasses all of Chester County and Southern Berks County to include Reading. I just wanted to connect with constituents and sort of provide an update about what Chrissy and our office has been up to. For those of you who don't know, Representative Houlihan is a 3rd-generation veteran, an engineer, entrepreneur, and an educator. She currently serves on 3 committees: the Armed Services Committee, Foreign Affairs, and the Small Business Committee. Our offices we have 3 offices, one in Reading, one in Westchester, and one in Washington, D.C. The current hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. While we're working remotely, we are still monitoring voicemails. So if you give us a call, we will always give you a call back same day for any issues you have. Our DC office handles legislative matters, so that's bills, letters, committee hearings, and things like that. Our district office where I work serve 2 primary functions: outreach, and so that's connecting with partners in the community, businesses. In my case, I handle infrastructure, environment, so those sort of partners: schools, nonprofits, first responders, and local governments. Another piece of work that we do is casework, and so that's if you have an issue with a federal agency such as Department of Veterans Affairs, IRS, or immigration issues or housing. We also assist community stakeholders like the Township Supervisors with federal grants. That's another function that me as a constituent advocate do. If you are pursuing a federal grant, please let us know. And if we can be helpful, we will try to get the Congresswoman to write a letter of support. This is a service that not all representatives provide, but one thinks that Chrissy is important and really a way for us to return these federal dollars to the district. We've helped grants for a few $1,000s to over $2 million. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Some of those constituent services, we've closed 1,398 cases to date. We have returned $3.52 million. We have responded to over 130,000 constituent outreach. So that's phone calls, emails, or letters. And just since COVID-19, we've had over 36,000 of those. We've held 26 town halls to hear from members of the community since she has been in office, and that is more than most members have held. Since March, Chrissy's voted for a few COVID relief packages. The Families First Coronavirus Act, which included numerous measures to address the spread of COVID, provides paid sick leave and free coronavirus testing nationwide. She voted for the CARES Act, which included a broad range of measures to stimulate the economy and to address the health threat. Chrissy introduced the National Public Health Corps Act, which would create a national public health service program to respond to public health emergencies. And she voted for the HEROES Act, which, like the CARES Act, included broad measures to address the pandemic, including assistance for state and local governments, and also modifications for the Paycheck Protection Program. Chrissy voted for the bipartisan HR2 Invest in America Act, which just passed the House. The bill would invest nearly $500 billion to rebuild our highways and protect American jobs. Chrissy introduced the READ Act to address early childhood literacy. At this time, I wanted to offer anyone, if anybody had questions with us, and just to remind everyone to participate in the 2020 census. The census is an important way for the federal government to measure who lives where and to make sure that we're getting our fair services from the federal government. The board should have received palm cards in the mail. If not, they're en route, so we can definitely follow up and make sure that we got those for constituents. And just want to encourage folks to stay up to date with what Representative Houlihan is up to on houlihan.house.gov. And that's all that I have. I would like to thank the board again and Mr. Chairman for the opportunity. And again, on behalf of Chrissy, thank you so much to those heroic actions on that night. There's hundreds of stories, I imagine, exactly like that we could hear all night. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I guess let's open it up to the public. Does anybody have any questions for John? If you do, please just unmute yourself, identify yourself, and comment or question. I don't see any public. How about the board? Is any of the board members? Okay, seeing none. John, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes and an update on what Representative Houlihan is doing. We certainly appreciate you coming and sharing that information. So thank you.
My pleasure, and you all have my contact information, and glad to stay connected.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to subdivision and land development. Under that, we have the Penmark Management Company, which is the owners of the Coventry Mall. You may remember a few months ago, they came before us, and there was a staff meeting in regards to the CVS lot over there. After, I guess, some discussion through staff meetings and in-house meetings on their part, they've sent a letter asking us to accept their rescission of the subdivision application. So I believe, is there a motion? We need to make a motion on that, Erica or Dan?
Have they paid us in full, Erica, for the escrow funds? I thought there was some outstanding.
There is. It is outstanding. They have a collection letter out at this point, and the representation has been informed again today.
Well, I think we need to follow up. I'm not so sure that we take a vote on it until they've come to a decision and they've paid the escrow funds, frankly. I think it's out there. We're not taking action on it until it's paid in full.
Well, they have until August 18th for the deadline on the plan. So they certainly need to pay those fees, but we will have our next meeting on August 24th. They have an extension request to continue any planning activities. They don't want to pursue the plan any longer. So you see what I mean, Dan?
So August 18th is the deadline they have to take it. So the board has to take action on the plan today. is what-
Right, right.
Okay, all right. So you have to take action. That's what she's telling me.
Yeah, I'm
We-
sorry. Yeah, unless it'll be a deemed
I
approval.
didn't realize that you had a deadline. Otherwise, I would say hold off and push them a little bit.
So we need a motion to accept the letter of Penmark Management to rescind their subdivision application pertaining
Yes.
to the Coventry Mall CVS lot. Is there any action we need to take in regard to what's owed at this point?
How far behind are they, Aaron? How long-
$2,700. Oh,
Yeah, I believe they are more than 60 days behind right now.
And when was the last time you had communication with them?
Today.
And they told you that they would pay, or what was the response?
Well, they somehow not aware, one of these things, that they were not aware that they had an outstanding balance. So they will rectify that.
All right, well, if they don't, I think within a week or 10 days, you tell me and I follow up and with Murray and go from there.
all right.
And
So
we report to the board at that point.
Okay.
so we'll make the motion to accept their letter, and then in 2 weeks' time, we'll follow up again and see if this has been paid. And that'll be beyond the 18th and a reasonable amount of time for them to get a check to us.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking for that motion that I just previously read. Does somebody want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make it.
Rebecca makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rick seconds it. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay. New business.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. This is Evan.
yes.
Before you go
Yeah.
any further, can I just
Sure.
ask quickly how much is the amount that the developers owe for the escrow?
$2,748, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, $2,748.
Thank you very much.
Okay, asphalt maintenance solution. This is the final payment recommendation for the chip seal project. The project is complete. It's been inspected, and invoices recommended to be paid by John McKee, our roadmaster. Erica, do you have any comments on this?
I've reviewed it with John. The project went straightforward, went well, and support the approval. This is Liquid Fuels Fund supported.
And John McKee's on the call. John, do you have any comments you want to say on the project in whole?
No, I think everything went well. We had two major projects, one being the Laurelwood Road Bridge and chip sealing work, and I think both went really well. So glad they're finished and, we're complete.
Move on to the next one. Okay, all right, so I need a motion to approve the final payment recommendation request for asphalt maintenance solutions in the total amount of $126,396.48. Before anybody makes that motion, I'm just going to ask the public, do I have any comments or questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. Does somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
And Rick made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rebecca seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have no old business, so we'll move on to supervisors' reports. And let's start with Rebecca. And do you have anything you want to bring to our attention?
I'm just wondering about PennDOT's attention to the Hanover Street, the North Hanover or South Hanover Street, where it dips down. The road there, we had been working on it, and it's really rough. It's kind of dangerous. I'm wondering if there is a schedule or a plan for PennDOT to address that road, South Hanover Street.
Erica, have you heard anything on that?
No, I will. I'll talk to John. We'll talk to PennDOT. I know there was a lot of work going on, so I'll have to get up to speed.
Rick, do you have anything?
Yeah, what I'd like to just comment on is how proud I am, of our first responders and our volunteers and all throughout the township. You never really get to see or realize it until something like this happens. And it just makes me so proud the way everybody came together. And it just says something for our township. I appreciate it. Thank you to all that was out there and working so hard and gave it their time. Thank you very much.
Under mine, I just have the zoning hearing board this week for the property on Nyman Road. Dan, you're prepared to go be present for that or be online?
Yes,
for that?
I've had, just to update you where, and I had communications with Ed. I asked him to give me more detailed letter with respect to the buffer area than what he provided in his March 3 letter. And it will be giving me that. I have not received it as of this day, but I did communicate with him on Friday, and he assures me I will have a more in-depth letter. Everything else has been submitted to the zoning hearing, and we're prepared for Thursday.
Okay, that's Thursday at 7 o'clock. That'll be held on a Zoom connection. All right, so at last week's Parks and Rec meeting, a discussion was had on the condition of the field at Kenilworth Park, the baseball field, Sherfield Field at Kenilworth. And John McKee has recommended that some repairs be done to it because the field is very rocky and in need of being fixed, and it is currently it's being used from what I understand. The cost of it is, in John's approximation, is approximately $3,000, and I thought it'd be a good idea to bring it in front of the board to get get the opinion of the board to weigh in on this, since it is a pretty big amount. John, do you want to add anything onto this?
Pretty much the field's lacking infield mix. I estimate 3 to 4 triaxle loads. It's a full-size baseball field, so it's a little bigger than the softball fields. But in years past, usually the school Westmont will use the field and do maintenance on it. And then we have the Norchester team that uses it. With COVID, they haven't been doing that. So the fields were rented. We went down to drag them and maintain them, and they're pretty much, you really can't drag them without bringing up big rocks. So there's not much mix on the field at all. I recommend, we get at least 3 to 4 inches of infield mix on the field.
Are you still good with that price? Do you think that's the price, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's by the tons. They sell it by the tons. So a truck may come with 19, 20. If we'll start with ordering 3 triaxle loads. And if we need a 4th, which I think we probably will, then we would order a 4th. So I'd say $2,500 to $3,000.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
When's the last time it was done? Do you know, John?
In years past, we haven't done it for a while. We would get a load or 2 of mix for the fields as they were being rented. We haven't gotten any mix for, it's been, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Is this a priority given the COVID lack of use?
It's being used, I believe, twice a week right now. It's rented.
Oh, very good.
Any other comments from the public? Anybody have any questions? All right, hearing no other public comment on this, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the expenditures of up to $3,000 for infield mix to improve the field conditions at Sherfield Field in Kenilworth.
So moved.
Rick makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Spencer seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, John, get to work. Spencer, let's come back to you.
Oh, okay.
Anything
I just wanted to
report?
mention that the Mercury had a obituary notice on Richard Smith, who was our code official back in the 70s for 15 years. So he passed away about a week ago. That's all I have to say, though. But he built a lot of houses in North Coventry, too.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Spencer.
Okay.
All right, managers report. Now we'll get there.
All righty. Okay, just a couple items. We had certainly another severe tropical storm last week, August 4th. Had a lot of heavy rain and wind, bringing down trees, power lines, caused several power outages throughout the township in the area. Our emergency operations center was activated, and we have certainly been dealing with that and logging any issues on township property. I know the community's been dealing with a lot lately, so we appreciate everybody's cooperation and as things get cleaned up. The EAC webinar series, there is another webinar coming up that'll be next week on August 18th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. This will be the topic of the hidden lives of North Coventry Township's frogs and salamanders. And then the final presentation of that series will be September 15th. And that will be on hawk identification for beginners. So these recordings are all kept on our YouTube channel and accessible through the website, social media, etc. So, and then, again, great job with everything going on in the township. And, the team of people we have here, the road crew, the police officers, fire, and the leadership here in the community has come together. I mean, for me, with my 3.5 months, it's been really quite something to see everybody pull together. So thank you for everybody's support of that.
What'd you expect? What did you think? It was going to be easy coming here?
Never.
Okay, thank you. Dan, do you have anything?
Couple things. One a comment and one an update. Just I also want to join with everybody with respect to the job the fire department did and the police. As a lifetime resident of North Coventry, I frankly wasn't surprised because of I know the community and what it can do. So kudos to everybody. You did a fantastic job, and what I appreciate as a community, as part of the community, what you've done. With respect to an update, I want to give you where we were with Tripodi. I did attend a sanctions hearing with Judge Mann on Friday in Westchester. Mrs. Tripodi's, I should say, had at the last minute apprised the judge that they had COVID symptoms and were incapable of coming. They didn't have any verification. The judge required our presence, as well as Mr. Corey, the master, as well as Mr. Turner, the Tripodi's attorney. Mr. Turner showed up about a half hour to 45 minutes late. Judge Mann basically ran down a history of the case for the 10 plus years as to what was going on, and in each case the contempts, as well as the appeals and the affirmations by the appellate court with respect to each and every aspect. He also set forth the judgments that the township already has with respect to outstanding fees, as well as the master, and also apprised Mr. Turner that there would be increased fees now that would most likely be entered as a judgment for attorney fees, etc., that have transpired since the last judgments. He ultimately enters an order stating that he will issue a bench warrant for the arrest of both Tripodi's, but would defer it until this morning, 9:30 this morning. They were to be present this morning for the sanctions hearing. Mr. Turner was to apprise myself and Mr. Corey if they were in fact going to appear, in case we wanted to appear again for the actual sanctions administered. We did not have to. Lo and behold, Ms. Tripodi's did not appear. They apparently went to the doctor today and they still have symptoms, but again, no verification. They actually went to the doctors and nothing that showed that they actually even had a test for COVID. or are COVID positive. Mr. Turner asked for a reconsideration of Judge Mann's order on Friday. He denied it immediately, and there is a bench warrant now for their arrest. I'm understanding that he's going to make sure he is obviously very livid. Then we'll take the necessary steps to arrest both Tripodis, and we'll go from there. I will certainly update you on that beyond once I get more information.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
I was going to ask, what is this insurance business? Is that something to be talked about or not?
I don't think so. I did communicate with Erica. Obviously, if there's outstanding liens or encumbrances on, I think you mean on with respect to Ashwood, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, my understanding, and Erica, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there are any outstanding taxes or liens on the property as it relates to the township. But with respect to the cleanup, they are required by law to make sure that before they get any dollars, that the dollars are spent to clean up, and there's a security that's being held in, and monies cannot be released by the insurance company until it has been cleaned up and verification of that has been made.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, public comment. Anybody has any public comment? I'd ask you to just unmute yourself, identify yourself, and make your comment.
This is Brian McNamara.
Hey, Brian, how are
Can
you?
you hear me? Pretty
Yeah.
good.
Good.
I just thought John might appreciate I talked to the resident that lives by the road where they put the new culvert in at Catfish Lane, and in the storm, the water did not go over the road for, I guess, the first time on a big storm, and both spillways on that pond were overflowing, but the water stayed on the other side of Catfish. His work putting that new culvert in worked.
Good. Thanks for relaying that. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Should I dare ask? 1778 St. Peter's. Eric, have any updates on that?
I do not. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Sharon. We'll follow up next time. Maybe we can move it further along. So at this time, we do not have an executive session this evening scheduled. No need to. Sharon just gave me a thumbs up. So at this time, we are going to adjourn the meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming. We are back here in 2 weeks' time on August 24th. So we'll see you then. Be safe, everybody.
Hey, good night.
Good night.
Thank you, police and firefighters. Good night.